And we understand that the booking process is complete. We want to hear now from Trump attorney and spokeswoman Alina Habba.
It is not about the 2024 election. It is about the destruction of the long-standing American principles that have set this country apart for so long. In recent years, we have seen the rise of politically motivated prosecutors who don't care for impartiality, who don't care for due process or equal protection of laws. They have been quietly but aggressively cultivating a two-tiered system of justice where selective treatment is the norm. From the Russia hoax to the attorney generals to the corrupt DAs in Georgia and New York, and now this. The people in charge of this country do not love America. They hate Donald Trump. What we are witnessing today is the blatant and unapologetic weaponization of the criminal justice system. The Biden-appointed special counsel has sought fit to bring 37 federal charges against President Trump, the leading frontrunner, less than a year and a half before an election. Countless other individuals, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden himself, retained possession of classified documents yet have not been prosecuted. And none of them came into possession of those documents while they were president. None of them were president who, as the head and sole member of the executive branch, has the power to summarily declassify documents. The decision to pursue charges against President Trump while turning a blind eye to others is emblematic of the corruption that we have here. We are at a turning point in our nation's history. The targeting, prosecution of a leading political opponent is the type of thing you see in dictatorships like Cuba and Venezuela. It is commonplace there for rival candidates to be prosecuted, persecuted, and put into jail. What is being done to the President Trump should terrify all citizens of this country. These are not the ideals that our democracy is founded upon. And this is not our America. Thank you.
So what's happening right now inside the courthouse? Has he been arrested? Has he been fingerprinted? Has a mugshot been taken? Walk us through what's happening here now.
President Trump is in a very unique position where he doesn't need to be given a mugshot, obviously. He's not a flight risk. He is the leading candidate of the GOP at the moment. He is going through a process that has been coordinated with Secret Service, and it will all be handled seamlessly.
And thank you, guys. The attorneys, what is his statement? Just real quick, how is he feeling?
He's defiant.
And there we have Trump's attorney and spokesperson, Alina Habba. Let's just break down a little bit what she said, John.
Well, it's what she didn't say that strikes me. What she didn't say is my client didn't do any of the things alleged in all of those detailed accounts. She didn't say any of that. She went way over to the political realm, which is not unfamiliar for former President Trump. He's done that before. But, you know, Robert Hur, who's the special counsel looking into Joe Biden's, President Biden's classified documents, he'd be surprised to know that he's not investigating President Biden. So even what she said about President Biden was factually incorrect. But most importantly, she said nothing about her client's innocence on the charges of obstruction. She did address the idea of blanket declassification, which, as we talked about earlier, he undermines, the former president undermines in his own statements.
That message was music to the ears of Trump supporters. Even here in South Florida, you heard her refer to Cuba and and Venezuela. There's so much history in South Florida as it relates to those two countries. There are a lot of exiles who live here. And so whenever you compare the U.S. to Cuba or Venezuela under Chavez or Cuba under Castro, you're sending a message to the people out here protesting, the honking of the horns, the chanting here. They are here for Donald Trump, and to hear that message, it's right down their alley because it says, oh, he's being treated differently. This isn't a democracy. Well, if you look at that case, and I've said this over and over again, as you know, investigators gave the former president every opportunity to turn over all the documents.
And John, but isn't the opposite true, that actually the difference between the United States and Cuba and Venezuela is that no one is above the law in the United States, not even a former president of the United States?
That's precisely right, and that the standard is the same, and so presumably the independent counsel who is investigating the sitting president is using the same standard as the one being applied to the former president, and so that's exactly right. And we should note, by the way, that the former Attorney General, Bill Barr, came out this weekend and said to these questions of weaponization, he said, I defend the president on Russiagate. I stood up and called out Alvin Bragg, that's the Manhattan District Attorney, and I've spoken out for 30 years about the abuse of the criminal justice process to influence politics. He said, though, about weaponization in this case, it is simply not true. That is a former Trump ally and a former Attorney General weighing in on precisely the charges his defense lawyer was making about weaponization.